Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So today I have a special guest, the Garage Autonomous. So we're going to give people a little bit of time to trickle in, before we go into the heart of what we're talking about. But I want to start off by you explaining, what your channel is about and why did you choose the name Garage Autonomous?
I chose, my channel is basically, I'm basically trying to reconnect with what is called, well, what was known as the Black Left. Not talking about the Black Left, I mean, in the tradition, the party, if you want to go further, Black brother, if you want to, not Rosa Luxemburg, I'm sorry, I get Lucy Parsons. Lucy Parsons. So in other words, there's definitely a Black Marxist, if you will, of my channel. At the same time, I try to make it accessible by, sometimes I might do a political roast video of the Black manosphere. I know we're going to talk about them a lot later, but, I do things like that. Or I just might talk about something non-political altogether. I definitely believe that for the Black community to go forward, to deconstruct, we've experienced, besides white supremacy, some of the internalized issues that we have. And that's what my channel is about. Also, well, the idea is that I'm not really, I'm not an academic radical. In other words, my politicism came from just simply working, being a working class person when I was a working class person. I would definitely say that I'm white. I wouldn't say white collar, but I'm in the technology field now, but when I was younger, all the way up until my late, I was always, I was working class. I worked in a plant, but at the same time, as far as technology, it was a hobby for me. Also an activist. My activism came simply out of an organic place. Again, it didn't come from, I didn't even really go to college until I got to my mid-30s. So, I took the idea from like when people talk about a sheet, I'm a homegrown, if you will, radical. Being the autonomist, there's the European Marxist idea of people who were workers who took over the workplace. In other words, taking out of that Marxist theory stuff and making it real. If the workers are supposed to be in charge, they should be in charge of the workplace. From the idea that they can work, that they can bosses, and they could possibly run a just and radical workplace of Europe. And so that's what I was attracted to, so that I got those two ideas together. Now, Black autonomous movement, which was something that was started by Lorenzo Crimboa Irvin. He was a former Black Panther. And after he came back to the States from living abroad, and he had to do it because he he was a fugitive, really. He was a political fugitive. But he was attracted to anarchist ideas. So he put together Black ideology with anarchist ideology. To explain that as quickly as possible, you're just meaning that you're a communist, but you don't believe in a state like what Russia had. That's the most simplest way to explain it. So both together on some things back in the 90s. And so that's another reason why the autonomous name is part of the channel's name. So that's about it.
Okay, and how would you form a stateless society? I mean, we depend on the state for all kinds of services and benefits. How would one go about creating a stateless society?
Thank you. That's a good question. And it's not going to be an easy one to answer because be a liar if I had said that there was a magic bullet answer to that. We would go about creating a stateless society theoretically if there was a revolution to begin with. And when we talk about a revolution, that's where every aspect of every group in our current society that's oppressed. And it's fair to say, obviously, that it's more than just Black people. It's more than just women. It's more than just LGBT people. Have to finally come to that point where we need to unite, and we would have to overthrow the powers that be. After that, begin to think about a stateless society. And it will come from a consensus or decision amongst these people. We hate going into this fantasy stuff, but I'm just throwing out the theory. What has always ruled us before? Has it always worked? No, it has not. It has always been unjust. People can come up with ideas of a government that can be progressive, just, a just society. But so far, every time we do it, those who have more power, those who have more money, have a tendency of taking it else, and it becomes an unjust society. So we kind of have to get over that idea before is not going to ever work. And we have to try something new. It may mean mistakes to come up with a stateless society. What a stateless society look like? It would look like something where people would have to make decisions in more micro sort of communities, and then those decisions would be passed up to a larger group of people who can agree on it as a society. So yeah, I mean, it's a long-running theory. It's a long-running debate, even with my loyal, viewers on my channel, because I encourage people to challenge me on some of the things that I put out there. And one of my viewers, somebody who I really like a lot, of Phoenix, Chastain, was the first one who said, "Look, there's a lot of people out there who think that this current society works, even if it's crappy. It works for us. How are we supposed to trust people like you to say, let's be a stateless society?" Like, when people think of statelessness, of course, they think of lawlessness. When they think of lawlessness, they think of people feeling like they could just do anything they want. Well, right now we live under laws and we live under governments, and there are sociopaths in our culture and people in our society, and people are going to commit crimes and do crazy things. But I think that if you're talking about a different society where there's a different culture, then it's going to breed a different kind of person. People can deal with those that I think communities can deal with people who just simply don't want to fit in and who are out to do bad. I'll admit the only thing that I could come up with would have to be a thing where we would have to deal with that person in the if we can't deal with that person in the most humane way, then we would have to just put them down like a rabid dog, or just isolate them and just take them out of the society where they would have to just live off someplace else.
Right. It just seems like you would have to have some kind of legal system in any kind of society, and that would make it a state. Like, you would have to have a legal system. You would have to have like a transportation system, or highways, and that requires laws and order and all that kind of stuff. It's hard for me to imagine a society that's stateless. And when I think of the word anarchy, I think of like disorder and confusion and chaos and stuff like that. But I understand what you're saying about smaller societies. But even those smaller societies, one could argue that those are states.
Yes. We turn to use the word syndicalism. It sounds like a fancy word. It sounds like it sounds like a big fancy word. It's really uh, that's where you could still have the good stuff that we all like. Because I like those things. I like computers. I like transportation. I like mass transportation. Actually, I don't. I'm not a really huge fan of cars. And yes, you do need organization for those things. But there's one thing about organization. There's another thing about authoritarianism or authority. So when we talk about hierarchy, what we're talking about is reorganizing hierarchy to where there is not top-down rules everybody. I've been a part of some experiments like that, if you will. My wife and I were strongly involved in Occupy, and although that was not necessarily, you can't say that that was a perfect example of how a society would be run. A great experiment in seeing how it can be run. So I would rather.
Yeah, that was one of the problems with the Occupy movement. Like, it didn't have like a structure, and some people say the same thing about Black Lives Matter. It's like no spokesperson. Like, it wasn't like a traditional type of organization where you can come to, talk to the leadership or have a unified voice. It had that kind of chaotic feel to it. But you can tell me a little bit more about your experience with Occupy. You're talking about Occupy Wall Street, right?
Yes, I am. And you are, look, you are correct in that people think that, I think that when people think of chaos, or excuse me, a sort of organized chaos, if you will, when we're talking about what's called horizontal or horizontal leadership. So instead of it coming from top down, it goes across in terms of decision making, in terms of who speaks for what, who says what. It can definitely bite you in the butt later in some cases, but again, this is a form of experimental human society, ultimately an organization. So it's going to have its bad, it's going to have its good. The thing that my experiences was that when we were trying to work out, I mean, like, there's a lot of people, the people who were more resistant to this form of organization, interestingly enough, were people like the elders who I had, when I was a younger activist. They were used to, who's going to be the spokesperson, who's going to be the leader, who's going to be the person who's going to write the press releases, who's going to be this, that, and the other. And this movement was basically saying, nah, what you're going to have is, if you want to have people who are going to write press releases, they're going to be a committee, not just one person who heads up maybe 2 or 3 other people who are good at writing. You're not good at writing. You're not a journalist, but you have something to say. You could be part of this committee too. Maybe you could pick up some skills and learn. So that level of organization was a learning curve for a lot of people. But theoretically, we've been sitting around looking at older ways in which anarchists were organizing in other parts of the world years ago. Some of this stuff also came out of current things that were happening in other parts of the world, like Greece and in Egypt. So when they were taking little bits of what could work, what couldn't work, that's what happened in Occupy. And again, it wasn't perfect at all. If you remember what happened in Seattle, the demonstrations in Seattle in the late 90s, when the G8, these are the organizations, the companies, sorry, these are the conferences of the countries that sit around and make policy that control, where the wealthier nations of the world can get oil and have control over natural resources out of the very countries that they're trying to disempower. And the thing is that when they have these conferences, when they had that conference in Seattle, it was mainly anarchists who, quote unquote, led it. I know that sounds like a contradiction in term, but it wasn't. And every time they made a decision about anything, it took hours to do it. But see, that's what real democracy looks like. When we want things to move along, that's when we start trying to elect leaders and people and bosses and party bosses and political parties. And that when we want that expediency, what we really wind up having is we lose our power as people. So, I mean, the thing is that, yes, it's not perfect. And it's not, it's not perfect at all in this, that level of organization. Black Lives Matter had that. And yeah, there was many times when people who did some reckless things and they spoke up for Black Lives Matter and to say that they were Black Lives Matter. That's the kind of thing that kind of blows up in your face a little bit later. But that doesn't mean that there's no way that we can't figure out how to fix something like that either.
Right.
But that's how it is.
All right. So we have a sense of your ideology, and, your political philosophy and all that. And, to switch gears a little bit, I know that both of us have had our run-ins with the so-called Black manosphere. We both have appeared on Obsidian Radio at different times. And I've seen a lot of your videos. You have a lot of humorous videos about the so-called manosphere. One that stands out is when the guy is jumping on a trampoline trying to slam dunk and he falls way short. That has me cracking up every time I see that video. So let the people know, like, what is your whole perspective about this Black manosphere, if you will?
Well, what I like to do when I do that video loop of the large man basically trying to take a basketball and dunk it, and of course he doesn't make it. He's trying to dunk the basketball from a trampoline,
right?
And right, and he thinks that he's a superstar and he's gonna make it. And the Black manosphere really comes off as, to me, they're a movement that is completely dysfunctional in their cognitive dissonance. They really are making these major, in social media, they're making these major judgments as if they're not part of that community. That's their first delusion right there. That
so can you give us some examples of that? Of them you said they make major judgments about a group as if they're not a part of that group. So can you give us, examples?
Yeah. Okay, so you got one gentleman who, he talks as if he is a successful businessman, that he is a success. He talks about the dysfunction of the Black community, in that, it's about the welfare. They're all on welfare. The women are crazy. The women are out of control. And yet this man has not had a job since 2008. He is not almost 40. He's actually past his early 40s. And the only reason why I feel like I have to sort of, to totally answer your question, I'm not going to name his name because, one, I don't want them flagging this channel. The best thing for this video, the best thing for me to do is for me to really explain these guys' dysfunction, but I'm not going to name the channel's name. Okay. Some of us can know who he is. He has a high top fade. I'm going to stop right there. But this is a gentleman who can constantly talk, and what he does is what the entire Black manosphere does. So this is them in a nutshell. They honestly see themselves as successful in their own right. Meanwhile, none of them do not even own a company that makes toothpicks. They don't do anything of any real note for the community, like most Black conservatives. And it's interesting that most of them are conservatives, but this gentleman has not worked since 2008. He does live on social programs, but he's the first one to want to condemn the rest of the Black community for living off of welfare. Completely true. Now these days, one of the biggest myths about welfare is that you're living high off the hog, off of a welfare check. That's the biggest myth right there. First of all, 75% of those who apply for any kind of form of social help, can't think of the word I really want to say, aid, of social aid, have to be employed. Okay. But you know, but of course, if that is, of course, if you're, you know, if you're living on, you know, living on the what was the minimum wage, you are eligible to be on welfare. Those who don't have jobs at all, you have to be looking for work, and you can only be on SNAP and certain other programs like that for I think like 5 years. It depends on the state. But there is no more of this living on welfare for 25 years, 15 years, and things of that nature. That I don't understand why they're, and the only reason why they keep pushing that myth out, these guys, is because they get, you know, they're a bunch of little yassa bosses. They sit around, they watch Fox News, and they basically parrot what Fox News says. So they themselves don't even know. But there's one particular gentleman, he's definitely on social benefit. He has to be, because he lives in New York. I live in New York. I know for a fact.
Oh, you're breaking up.
But an apartment, Section 8. Okay. Am I breaking up?
Yeah, you were breaking up for a second. I hear you now.
Okay. What I was saying is that you can't live on, you can't be unemployed for many years and not pay your rent. So you have to pay your rent, and that means you have to be on Section 8. So I know for a fact that this gentleman is on full social benefit, but yet he makes video after video about the Black community. It's dysfunctional, it's this, it's that. And he's part of the problem. And I mean, not even the problem. He's part of that. There's not one Black conservative out of the Black Negro manosphere where these men are actual independent, successful businessmen. They can say they claim success where, you know, they can claim success all they want, that they don't have a boss. Fine. You know, that's not the reality for most African Americans. And most African Americans are not all on welfare the way that they all say that we are. We're definitely part of a huge chunk of the poverty line. Black women, what was that number again? Just take me a second. I think Black women right now are part of 23.1% of African American women are on the poverty line. And the thing is that, you know, they don't want to look at the social context of how we got that way in the first place, you know. Yeah, that's the reason why I do the basketball loop thing. I mean, it just represents, it's very symbolic of the, you know, delusional mind state that these men are in. They think that they're living, you know, you would think that these men are captains of industry or something, and that they were the exceptional Black men who made it out of the community, and therefore now they can pass all these judgments. And actually half of them, more than half probably, that's not the case. And okay. why do I go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
And so why do I I see some of my trolls are in the chat. I'm just now looking. I see some of my trolls are in there. I'm not gonna respond to them until later. But why do I get on their cases as much as I do is because I can't stand liars. These guys have been trying to the fact that Black women are in some sort of privileged place, and therefore the rest of society is coddling them and protecting them, which I don't understand how that's possible. Black women have the worst pay gap compared to everyone else. They're paid 63% of what non-Hispanic white men were paid back in 2015. The Violence Policy Center tells us that in a study that they released in 2016, that in 2014, the homicides that were carried out by men in intra-racial, that means same-race violence, that the victim was typically 40 years old, African-American, a woman, and that she actually ranks higher than the rest of her female victims. So, I mean, I don't know where they get this idea about the black women being protected, that they're this class of women that everyone coddles. That's not true. Are they a protected group against, hate crimes and stuff like that? Well, so are black men. But we all know that we're not really protected. We're not protected by both sexes, are not protected from violence of white supremacy and discrimination. So yeah, that's the reason why I like to get on them. It's fun picking on them, and it's great, and I like doing it. It makes my teeth white.
Yeah, so one of the guys in the comment section, I blocked him, but basically he was saying that you threaten people and you threaten to dox people and all that kind of stuff. You want to say something in response to that guy?
Yes, I would love to. One, I have no problem. I'm going to tell you the reason why I have no problem doxing, or I don't dox anyone. I have never doxed anyone. None of my videos have people's documents in them. And I believe in not doing that only because I don't want my channel flagged. If I could get away with it somewhere else, I would do it. And I'll tell you why. And I know that's unfair, and I know that sounds mean, but I'll tell you why. Because these guys would not hesitate. Absolutely, they would not hesitate to do it the other way around. And I've seen them do it to people who just simply get online and say, hey, I'm a feminist. Hey, a radical leftist. Hey, I'm a gay person. Hey, I'm this. Hey, I'm that. And if they can figure out who these people are, they dox them. If they can figure out a way of silencing them by constantly attacking them, that's what they do. But see, the minute that a progressive or a radical does the exact same thing that they do, then it's a problem. So now these guys, this GTFO simp, I know who this guy is. I didn't threaten him. He made it up. He took a graphic. He basically downloaded, and he did a horrible job at it, by the way. I believe if you're going to do some black ops stuff against me, do a good job. Like don't do a bad job. You know what I'm saying? Do your level of what I do to people. He downloaded a graphic. He downloaded my icon. And basically, he typed a death threat to himself. Then he did a capture. Then he put the icon and put the capture together. Then he made a video. You can go to his channel. And I'm glad that you didn't ban him. I would love to see what he has to say about this.
Actually, I did ban him.
Okay. Well, basically, and the only reason why he's banned from my channel is because he doesn't bring anything to the table. Him and Monkey Bars and whoever else, like a lot of these clowns, they don't come to my channel challenging with anything challenging to say. If they did, they wouldn't be blocked. It's just that simple, And the thing is that, and I don't even mind if they do ad hominem attacks on me. I most certainly do ad hominem attacks on their board, their leaders. In Philly, Obsidian, I decided to digress and regress rather, and go into ad hominem attacks on him because I can't take him seriously. He's someone who's not to be taken seriously.
Yeah, so I want to go into that a little bit later. In a couple of minutes, I want to ask you about your experience on his show, because I listened to a couple of your interviews on, with him. But before I do that, I just want to shout out some of the people in the chat room.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so shout out to Psycho, shout out to Vina Man, shout out to Queen Sister, and to everybody that tuned in, even the trolls. I even shout y'all out.
Right.
Monkey Bars. I even shout y'all out.
Where would we be without trolls? Where would we be without trolls? We would be. I mean, I love my my loyal viewers. I mean, you subscribed to me a long time ago, and I was like hugely appreciative of that. and other larger YouTubers have subscribed to me. And I like it when we can agree and we can also even debate and disagree. Like I had but like I said, like one of my loyal viewers, we've been going on a long tit for tat type of conversation or debate about how the hell should we challenge the idea, like how the hell should we ideas of what radicals want versus what works for us. How are you ever going to convince people of that? And I honestly had to answer and say there is no magic bullet answer for that. Sometimes you even have to wait until people are literally like standing over a cliff for them to say maybe we should try something different. Excuse me. But anyway, yeah, I'm glad, give your shout outs and everything else. That's cool.
Yeah, so I wanted to respond to something that Psycho said in the chat room. He talked about how he doesn't support doxing. And generally, I don't support doxing. Like, I don't dox people or anything like that. Even people that I adamantly disagree with, I don't dox people. Because I don't try to take this thing beyond YouTube. I would rather just engage somebody intellectually, put forth my ideas against their ideas. But if they decide to flag my channel or do dirty tactics and stuff like that, I'll respond to them. But I don't believe in like jeopardizing somebody's job or, putting them in jeopardy personally based on some disagreement that I have with them on YouTube. So, that's something that I don't do. Like, and I don't co-sign that because I don't want people's lives to be adversely affected. Like I've seen situations where people have put out people's work information, they put out people's address. And in this time and age, I mean, people can do just about anything. I mean, some people are unstable like that. Some people will actually engage in violence against somebody because they have a disagreement with them. Or some people are just stalkers like that. Some people have psychological issues and all that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't want to jeopardize like somebody's place of employment and stuff like that. I don't condone that. I see that happens a lot in the so-called black sector of YouTube. So, I just had to get out my views on that and, just shout out Psycho for just stating his position.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so if you can, you can say a little bit more about that before we go on to the next question.
Yeah, thank you for that. I do want to clear something up. I guess okay. I was just being a little hyperbole, giving a lot of hyperbole around it. Listen, those who are guilty of it should get it back. Those who are not, yes, we can disagree. We cannot like each other. We can even take it dirty and do ad hominem attacks because we have different ideologies. I don't mean that just because of that, I immediately start doxing people. No. First of all, doxing people is not necessarily in and of itself a bad thing. It's dropping the dox is where it gets into a bad place. Now, I made a video a while back where I said it was a revolutionary act to dox people, but I was very specific about who those people were. These are people who didn't have a problem, who 9 times out of 10 are or have been or have participated in doxing others or harassing others or stalking people. Yes, you are right. If I don't like what you say, I will not then turn around and start posting your home address, your phone number, and things of that nature. One of Obsidian's fans, and I know we're going to talk about him later, but I just wanted to bring this up. A guy by the name of Big, actually for on end, had Crystalline Karazin's home address posted in the comments section of Obsidian's old channel. Obsidian did not take it down. He refused to take it down. Even if people, even some of his own fans basically said, dude, this is not cool. And they even argued back and forth between the fans, were arguing with each other back and forth over whether or not it was right or not. Now, Crystalline has never doxed anyone. She's never posted anybody's personal information. So, you know, but somebody like that was somebody who I would definitely would want to target and figure out who that was. But would I drop his docs? I would certainly not do it on my channel because I don't want to get flagged. But other than that, no, I don't believe in just doxing anybody simply because you have a disagreement with them. No, okay. I don't believe in that at all. No.
So now that we're on Obsidian, so can you tell us a little bit about your experience going on his broadcast? I know that you were on there a couple of times, and I think the first time you all just had a debate, and then after that, I think it got worse or whatever. But if you can tell people like what the show was about, why you decided to go on there, and how things turned out, and what your impressions are of both Obsidian and his fan base.
All right. Well, this is what started it, and I'm not gonna lie, I started it. I do what I do to everybody. If anything, if there's one thing that I'm unapologetic about, is trolling people. I haven't said that in my comeback video because I've been I took a break because things just got really busy on my end. But I went on, I think it was the day after or the week that Trump was elected. I was going through and looking at everybody who happened to be a Black YouTuber who supported Trump. I had never heard, I've heard of Obsidian, but I never watched any of his videos. And I decided to just tune in. And, you know, he's playing this grandiose sounding music and just cooning it up, really. Just happy that Trump, got elected. So, I took his byline, the everyday brother. And I said, oh, you're just the everyday coon. And his response to me, instead of just saying, F you, or he didn't delete my comment, I would, that was the first thing that I was impressed by. I thought that it was that. But he emailed me immediately and said, hey, I've looked at some of your videos on your channel. I see where you are. Can you come on my show? And I think it was mainly he framed the conversation about mating and dating. We didn't go into what I thought we were going to go into, which was Trump, to public policy of the Republicans of the last 40 years, or even the Democrats of the last 40 years, which he would have been surprised to learn that, I'm no fan of Clinton. I'm no fan of Obama. I'm no fan of the Democrats. We didn't talk about any of that. We instead talked about was who was worse, Black women the dating game, or what they call game, rather, we talked about the what's the word I'm looking for? The seduction game. That's it. Whether or not, why is that bad when there's guys out there? Right. And women having choices. That was, he felt that, women can have choices, men can't. He feels that's unfair. Little things like that I don't really argue about. I don't find it to be an argument of any kind. Wasn't for a debate on, should women be choosy about short men and not be, and I think that everybody has a right to a preference. A lot of these dudes get it in their minds that there's some sort of edict that Black men must date and like women who are fine. And that's not true. Right. And yet at the same time, men have to make all these choices, and they got to make all these changes. And I'm sorry, but that's not true either. I've seen plenty of women with short men. I've seen plenty of women with fat men. I've seen plenty of women with skinny men. I've seen, women, I'm sorry, we train them, men, have socialized them to accept us in any kind of way, shape, or form, unless, of course, those women are of a certain type. Then they could be picky. But then again, we're saying, well, she has every right to be picky because she's quote unquote, she fits within the mainstream standard of beauty. So she could do whatever she wants, and she could like whoever she wants. But of course, the thing to beat her with that on is how much of us can actually have a lot of money. So anyway, the point is that that was what happened. And the first discussion that we had, my first appearance, was not that bad, really. And I think that was probably, I think that, and then there was a female caller, and it wasn't like the phone lines were lit up that much. So then he invited me on again in December. Now, because I actually have a job, and I have two jobs. My first job is what I do to pay the bills. Second job is me being a father, because my kids know where I am at 7 o'clock. And there's me commuting with my children, with my youngest. We come home together, or we used to, and all that. So when he was contacting me about the time, I did, and again, thinking that we were going to be talking about Trump, I couldn't wait to get back on there and talk about how already he wasn't meeting up with the things that he was saying he was going to do. Right. Oh, sorry. I got sidetracked looking at the comment section. I'll get to you in a little bit, Monkey Handlebar. So
yeah, you can feel free. Like right after you make your comment, you can feel free.
But I know. But this is a very important thing that you asked me. So
yeah.
But I don't want to keep rambling and making it long. So my point is that what happened was this. Right before I was supposed to come on, and I think his big thing was that I made a video between my first appearance and my second appearance. And one of the videos I talked about how the dating game, or rather the seduction game, it really is, it's an industry. There's dudes out there that are writing books. You encountered one of them, by the way, on your appearance on his show. I was only able to listen to it for a little bit later. But I was commenting that it's not really real. That I made a video where I was saying that, look, the seduction game is based on women who, I feel like game only works on women with low self-esteem, or who are drunk, or who are so young that they don't have life experience enough to see through the so-called gaming. And obviously he disagreed with that. So on my second appearance, literally the man sends me 3 links to some books that he says, you need to read these. Man, I need to read them for my appearance on the show. And he literally sent them to me less than 8 hours before it was time for me to be on the show. Actually, it was more like 3 or 4 hours before I was supposed to be on the show. Now, I don't know about you. I'm an avid reader, but I'm not about to sit and read, dating books and junk psychology books,
right.
that pertain to gender politics in those 2 and 3 hours as I'm on the subway with my kid. So the minute that he asked me, did I read this? Did I read that? I said, no, I didn't read that. Well, you're woefully ignorant about game. I was like, well, actually, no, I'm not woefully ignorant about game. And I think I said this in my first appearance. I said, I've been reading about these seductionist guys for years. I've gone to their blogs. And because he doesn't, and one of them I mentioned was this blog. I don't even know if it's still up, but a blog called Chateau Artiste. And it's just that blog is just the typical stuff. These white what they call pickup artists. That's the term I really want to use. It was mainly written by a bunch of white guys who think that they know how to seduce women. They're typically racist, by the way. They're typically also, they lean over to the right. It's a staff of guys at this blog. This blog that was actually originally authored by a guy until he got doxxed by a stripper of all people. then they took over the blog, and so that was one. And I was reading that blog every day just to study what these idiots say and what they think about women and stuff. So anyway, I told him I do know about what you're talking about. I just haven't read those specific books. And because I haven't read those specific books doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about. So fine, let's talk about something else. So when then he goes into these sort of rhetorical argument points, like the public schools are bad because the schools are mainly it's women teachers, and women are the educators. First of all, you're the dogma, and you're saying that that's a social fact. The reality is that women, for the most part, are teachers because women take jobs that they can take because, it depends on what you're paying them, and that's one thing. And yes, it's always been traditional that most women are teachers, but that doesn't mean that just because women are the teachers that the schools are bad. As I was trying to go into explaining why public schools are bad, like the defunding of public schools, the fact that larger tax bases move to other communities. Therefore, if you only got people who are poor living in certain communities, well, guess what? Your schools are going to be poor. If your schools are going to be poor, 9 times out of 10, those kids are not going to be learning anything. And if they're not learning anything, then they're like, why the hell am I here? And 9 times out of 10, they're dropping out. So, me trying to explain these things, trying to go into things, how it is, New Possibilities. We are activists, we're thinkers. So when we try to explain something, we're going to have to use things like historical context. Well, see, Obsidian's trained by corporate talking head right-wing media. Okay, even though he thinks he's a rebel against that stuff, he's not. He's trained by it. So these talking heads, they just run their mouths, and that's the kind of conversation he wanted me to have with him. I don't have those kinds of conversations. You and I can have debates. You and I can disagree on things, but us talking over each other and just throwing dogma after dogma at each other throughout a conversation, that's not a real debate. And that's where things just went complete. Then I thought about it, and for a while, like weeks afterwards, I was thinking, was I really that weak? Like, what was going on here? Like, what would happen? And then after analyzing the thing, well, one, he had his little crew calling in. And yeah, I mean, look, it's a call-in show. So, to be fair, it's a call-in show,
Right.
But let's face it, it's a call-in show of people who think like him. So the reality is that they all called in for me. I'm trying to explain, and then they're going from one subject to the other. Then somebody goes, oh, well, you're a socialist, you're a communist. How do you explain Russia? How do you explain Venezuela? Well, again, I can explain those things, but as I'm trying to explain it, then some other ADHD clown calls in and starts then wanting to get me to talk about welfare. And I'm like, well, why? It just went on and on and on like that. And it's like,
yep.
They
know exactly what you're talking about. Because it's like they have multiple people talking at once. Like he has all these people calling. And it's not like he takes a question from a caller and just keeps it moving. He'll have that caller stay on the line and then add more callers, and they just throw constant questions at you. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you coined it better than even I did when I did my little post-game video of my second and last appearance on Obsidian's channel, and that was radio, and that was you added to where it was like Neo fighting against all them Agent Smiths. That's exactly what it was like. Yeah. He stacks the deck. I mean, I could have played some nonsense like, hey, I'm gonna get all my friends and all my buddies and family members and my daughters, and I'm gonna have them try to call up on the show so they can help me. Like I could have played some nonsense like that, but I'm not gonna. And yeah, I mean that's exactly what that was like. I mean the thing is, like I said, was it unfair? Not necessarily. It's just that by the time we even got to the point to where I could try to answer this question, answer that question, and go back and forth, the show ended.
Right.
And then I thought about, well, because BTR, that the thing is that you pay for your time on BTR. It's $39 a month, and you've got the 3 hour long block. But then you can call in, I think, and do like something where you're offline or something like that. But after that, I was like, nah, I'm not doing this again.
Right. Yeah. Did you hear about this? Did you hear that he challenged both of us to a debate? I just ignored him. I blew him off. But
no, I didn't. This is the last time. There were 2 times when I actually visited his channel and saw a video of his. And the first time was, I mean, the time after the debate was when I simply made a video. I wasn't even thinking about him. I was, like my great grandmother would say, I wasn't studying him. I was making a video about how the manosphere, and when I say the manosphere at this point, I ain't talking about just the black dudes, I'm talking about the white dudes too. Because I mess with them and troll them too. Because unlike him, I'm not scared of white boys. I'm not scared of white racists. I used to troll Stormfront. I used to be part of a group that used to hack Stormfront way back in the day. That was back in the day before they got smarter and got more secure with their site. So I'm not scared of them, unlike him. But anyway, I made a video simply saying how dumb it was that they were all having a little hissy fit over a Star Wars movie. Because the last 2 Star Wars movies, the lead characters were women. I made a video about that, and guess what? He made a video about me. I was like, all right, I'll bite. I'll watch this video. And but the thing is that the real response to that video wasn't really it was about what I said, but it really wasn't. It was really more about, hey, I beat Garage Autonomous in a debate. Because I talked over him, and me and my buddies all talked over him all at once, and that's how we won the debate. And he kept claiming that over and over again. And then I figured it out. Oh, I get it. He wants me to summon, coming back and doing a back and forth and just doing videos anymore. My quote would be about me debating with this dude. Man, forget that guy. So at that point, I stopped going to his channel. The second time I went to his channel, just outright, was under the Sophia Nelson thing, where she basically killed his channel. She made him bow to him like a supplicant. He then went back, deleted all his other videos about her, because he quite a ways on his second channel, which is now his main channel. He got rid of those videos, and basically that was it. So I went over there and I gloated, but I used the wrong choice of words, because apparently some people, whether they were real trolls or not, really thought that when I said, hey, I'm here for you, bro, I was being sarcastic.
Oh, they thought you were like his one person. You were there to support him. That's what they thought.
Yeah, they thought I was supportive of them. And I think you said this expression once, a broken clock can be right 2 times in a day. Well, right. One of his trolls actually had more than 2 brain cells to rub together. And he was able to make this quick thing where he tried to raise this drama about me supposedly working with them. Some guy named Peter Brook, which I haven't seen that account in a while. But he, that's what they did. They came up with this little Mickey Mouse little thing. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and going back and forth and try to convince people that I wasn't working with these guys. So I went ahead and I deleted that comment. And that really came out of the fact, because I went to Crystal and Carrington's channel, and I said, I don't agree with you on a lot of things, but I'm glad that you guys are working together, that you and Sophia are working together, and y'all are dealing with these guys finally, that us dudes can do or say. I mean, it almost feels like, you're just wasting time arguing with these clowns.
So let me ask you this.
That's what happened.
So let me ask you this. What do you mentioned Sophia Nelson. So what do you think about that effort of, not just her speaking out against Obsidian and, talking about the legal issues surrounding him. What do you think about the effort to put a whole bunch of these misogynists on a list and target their channels for termination and all that kind of stuff? What's your opinion about that situation?
Well, okay. The thing is that I don't have a problem flag channels are indeed sexist, misogynist. If you take an entire class or group of women and you want beast birds, that sounds silly, but I'm trying not to curse, and I curse a lot, but constantly are portraying a certain social class or group of people, and you're constantly calling them certain kinds of words that are harmful or oppressive. And I think that you shouldn't. And according to YouTube has these rules. We didn't give them these rules; they made these rules. Yes, you should flag them. I think that you should do it when they are, especially when these same guys that do these channels. It's not about they. No, let me back up. Especially when all they do is just do a lot of name calling and just telling a bunch of lies, and they're not factual in any way. So the thing is that when you do that, I have no problem when they were flagging. Now, not every man on YouTube something to say about black women that he didn't like. Oh, I really wish that they didn't have weave. Oh, I really wish that their breath didn't stink in the morning. Whatever. Like, did not deserve to get flagged. But then again, none of those types of guys were flaggable. You see what I'm saying? They went out and they flagged men who were guilty of those things. Now, the argument was, you're killing our free speech. Well, first of all, free speech exists on a street corner. Free speech exists in city council chambers. Free speech exists in the press. But when a corporation like Google has their rules and says if you are a user and you're signing terms of service so you can use our services, then these are our rules. They broke those rules and they got what they deserved. I have no problem with that. And hey, look, they turned around. One of them got smart. This guy named, I'm going to call him Brianna Solong. Brianna got smart and he decided that he was going to get a bunch of other underachieving gentlemen like himself. And they went and did the same thing. I mean, do I agree that black men should be called apes? No. Do I believe that, but that's what they did. They turned around and they did the same thing to those women. So, I mean, the way I see it, hopefully these two cults will cancel each other out with the name calling. In terms of some of these black women, they do have legitimate things to say, but I've always felt that they kind of mess up in their narrative with the whole calling black men apes and all this nonsense and making these broad stroke generalizations. But then one can argue that they only do that because the black men are doing it. And who to go into who did it first to me is irrelevant. And that's not even a conversation I'm ever going to have with anybody because I don't care. But anyway, the point here is that flag, yeah, they deserved it. Especially Obsidian. He did target the way he would obsess over particular women. First of all, talk about choices. And again, I'm going to say this. Who are you to talk about someone making a certain life choice? And then if she decides she wants to write an article or make a video or make a podcast and say, well, because I made this life choice, where are the men out there who want women? They want women who are educated and smart. They don't, they're not looking at people like me. That sucks. And I pretty much have made the choice that I made, and I'm at a certain age. It kind of sucks that, there are men out there that just don't take women seriously enough, who don't want to take women who are serious in career. Like, you know, if men can have it both ways, then women should be able to have it both ways. That's all they're saying. You know, I'm not saying that that's what Sophia, I'm not going to speak for Sophia, but I know that some of them have said what's going on. I know that some of them have expressed these things, and they have a right to express, you know, sort of make a gathering of their lives and what happened. And, you know, it is different. Point. They're basically just pointing out that for men, it's not a thing. When you choose career, you could still have family. If you're a woman, you choose career, dudes don't want to take you seriously, and dudes don't want to marry you, and dudes don't want to do this and that and the other. You know, which is sad because I know there's a lot of men out there who aren't like that. But the reason why you don't hear from us is because 9 times out of 10, we did marry the career woman, and we have nothing to complain about. We have nothing to say about it. You know, right. So you don't hear that much from us.
Yeah, so I want to go back to this censorship issue. Now, some will say that they accomplished nothing because, you know, most of the channels that they targeted are still up and running. In fact, right. You know, some of them have even more subscribers. They've gotten more attention and all that kind of stuff. So people will say that effort was a failure. And then also some people will say, well, you know, they should be entitled to express their opinions and stuff like that as long as they don't violate YouTube's guidelines and they're not threatening anyone, even if their views are, you know, sexist or, you know, objectionable. They should have the right to express their views because, you know, the same thing can happen to some of these women's channels, as you pointed out, like how they've been targeted for calling black men apes and, you know, attacking black men.
Oh, you still?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Well, I would say this. Did they get rid of these men? No, they did not. Do I consider that a failure? No. I'm going to tell you the reason why I think it's a victory. Because guess what? These men made new channels, which is what they're going to do. These are the ones who are actually making money from all of this. Yours, I mean, he's been flagged down in the past and like a grab of vermin. You know, he has that kind of resilience, that level of survival to come back. That's and again, he's of the same two-legged vermin species that a certain other person that we were talking about has. They're not going away, but this is where the victory comes in. They left these women alone. They either had to change things, which is what these women wanted. None of them are saying, oh, you want to talk about us wearing weave? Fine, go ahead. We don't care. But the problem is when you want to add the name calling. The problem is when you keep ratcheting up the level of hatred to where there's some loon out there who might actually do damage, real damage.
Right.
They have had to change. I mean, let's face it. Let me put it this way. Did Obsidian, did he or did he not? Did he or did he not come back on the air and call Sophia by her name? Or did he or did he not take down the videos? You know, he had the choice to re-upload those videos with his new channel. He didn't do that. He's such a big, tough guy. I mean, like, I would have went on ahead. I would have went out smoking. I would have went out swinging. I would have went out and said, you know, this is about free speech. I'm going to keep putting these videos up until they ultimately flag me based on my IP address if they have to. Like, you know, Google, if they want to. I'll go and get 20 different email addresses and 20 different phone numbers and make more accounts and more accounts. Like, he didn't do any of that. He changed his behavior. They all changed.
Yeah, they really behavior. Did switch up.
They
like
got to the point. Right.
Yeah, some of them actually switched up. Like, for instance, I'll say this real quick. Like, you know, that guy, what's his name? O'Shea Duke Jackson. Like, we immediately after all that controversy, he said, you gotta stop talking about black women. And then he started inviting black women on his program. I was cracking up. And then this other YouTuber referred to him as being the weakest link because he took such moves. And
Oh,
because some of
they
these
turn
guys
on each
were
other
actually
quick.
trying to apologize, like they were trying to negotiate with these women. So that in and of
Yeah.
itself is a form of victory, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, can we say that they got rid of these men and they got these men to talk about tulips and butterflies? No, but to say that that they accomplished nothing is false. They got these men to talk differently. Are they going to still be saying? Excuse me. Are they still going to be saying the same nonsense over and over again? Every time a beer bottle crashes on the street in a black neighborhood, it's a black woman's fault. Yeah, they're going to keep saying that. But I guarantee you one thing: they're not going to say Crystal and Karen's name next to it. They're not going to say Sophia's name next to it. They're not going to say anyone's name next to it anymore. They're going to change up. So if they change up, they change up. Fine. They can still say the stuff they're going to say. They can still say the stuff they're going to say. But the hate language. And straight up making videos, I'm gonna kill a black B word and all that kinds of stuff. They're not doing that anymore, and they're not. So they can go somewhere else. There's Vimeo. There's a website. Now there's a website I started by one of these alt writers. I'm not gonna say his name because he's another sensitive little neo-Nazi that used to be on YouTube, and now he's the type that'll come out and flag people. And the only reason I'm not saying his name because of what I want to say next to it, and that is that this guy went and made a website, him and a couple of other people, and they want to make a video site. They made a video site like YouTube. It's called Bit. If you look at the word, it looks like it says BitChute, but it's called BitChute, and you go there and you can upload whatever you want. And I'm gonna take them up on the challenge because the kind of videos that, like the video that these guys, Monkey Handlebars, maybe he didn't have anything to do with it, but GTFO Simp definitely had a lot to do with it. I had two videos that were flagged. Now listen, I'm not gonna lie. Word for word, the two videos that I got flagged for, that I just got out of YouTube jail about, were definitely in violation of the terms of service. I'm not going to lie about that. If you actually read the entire terms of service, New Possibilities, who is a lawyer, you would say, "Oh, you're guilty of that. You were guilty of that." I mean, and even I put involved with what I had to say in one video. I put his face on it. I basically took a comment that he said. He's not even a content maker. And so I was guilty of a lot. I'm not going to lie. And I did it on purpose for two reasons, because I always had this going experiment that, these guys want to say that they should be able to say what they want to. Let the leftist people are censoring people and feminists are censoring people. So I'm going to do the same thing. And I wanted to see how long it would be before they would actually. And interestingly enough, it really wasn't until Obsidian created one of his self-created grudges that he makes. He likes to make these grudges because he's all of the sudden made in.
Oh, you're breaking up.
In response, my trolls. That you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now. Yep.
Okay. A video that I made in response to my trolls, all of a sudden that video gets flagged. So I knew the score after that. Now, I might go ahead and make a channel on this BitChute channel and re-upload that, and we'll see if I can actually make this, if that site is really about free speech.
Right.
But anyway, my point here is that these men changed their behavior. They changed what they said. I'm sorry, they didn't change their behavior, but they changed their language. And that's what these women were in protest of.
Right.
And I think that, the one thing that, and I'm not trying to throw, cast aspersions on anyone, but I think that Sophia came into this situation and she was serious about it, as opposed to others who have been victims of this stuff. Because Sophia doesn't have a channel where she's trying to make money off of it and get lots of views. She took this seriously. Being a lawyer, she was like, I'm going to put an end to this, or at least put an end to it how it concerns me. And that's what she did. And she did the right thing. And I think this is how it should go from now on. Because these guys just don't know how to play. They don't know how to play. They don't know how to be fair. You don't sit there and make a series on someone. They don't even know about it. And you want to characterize them in a way that is unfair. They make a life choice. It has nothing to do with you. Absolutely nothing. You're just going out of the blue, attacking somebody on a life choice that has no effect on you and is not your business. Right. That's the end of it.
So let me ask you this. There's popular talk in the so-called Black manosphere and even among some so-called pro-Black circles where they essentially say that the Black woman abandoned the Black man in the Black community and united with white feminists, and that basically destroyed the Black community. What's your thoughts about that assertion? And I'm sure you probably heard it, here on YouTube. That's common, talk that people make here on YouTube about Black women abandoning the community to unite with these white feminists to the detriment of the community. So what's your position on that issue?
I don't know where these Black women are leaving. I don't know how they're abandoning the Black community and where they're going. Are they going into mansions? Are they becoming millionaires overnight, playing lotto, and they're leaving? I don't see that happening. There is no abandonment by Black women in the community. If anything, one could argue, and I wouldn't agree with this 100%, that Black men, not necessarily the community, but just, we see so many children in the Black community. We can talk all we want about, it's the type of men that do that. But I've seen lots of men with degrees. First of all, I want to be fair and say I've seen lots of men of all races with degrees not be there be in the house with their children after the age of 5 or after the age of 10. So that's a larger issue, right? But anyway, I don't know about this thing I don't believe the Black women are abandoning the community. That's all that's there. Black community.
Right, I guess what I'm referring to is not like physical abandonment. Right. Saying that, Black women have taken on this feminist attitude where they don't need they feel like they can live without a Black man. They don't need a Black man and all that kind of stuff. And they have like anti-Black male attitudes and all that kind of stuff. And they have abandoned the whole family structure in terms of, instead of focusing on family, they're more focused on career and their own personal advancement, whether it's, it's pursuing like jobs or education, or even like on a level of like if they're on welfare and stuff like that, taking advantage of certain opportunities at the expense of the Black family and all that kind of stuff.
All right. Okay. All right. I got you now. And I'm so glad you asked that. What I see every day at my job, like I'm in the tech field, but I'm also in the educational field at the same time. And educational field? Anyway, never before have I been surrounded by so many educated single moms, and who also happen to be Black, and of course, running up close to them are Latinas. The thing about it is that they have to do this because they are not in the traditional relationships that everyone says that they're abandoning. If you are left to fend for yourself raising a kid, And thanks to the I don't want to call them reforms. I want to call them cuts. The welfare program, first of all, was not just a check. It was also, there was job training at some point. There was a little bit of education. Like you had like a little stipend. If you proved that you were going to school or getting your GED, you would get a check. But guess what? That was all in the 70s, late 70s. When Reagan came, Clinton was a major of the welfare program. He cut, he made a lot of cuts
Right.
and made a lot of changes. And the point that I'm making here is that you can't be on welfare forever. And it doesn't work like that. It never has. So you're forced to have to do something. And you know that you can't raise kids, one or two kids really, even on working at McDonald's. You're going to have to get an education. So this whole thing about Black women are the highest educated group. It's not like they're doing all this because escape or get away from the Black man. They're doing this because there is no Black man working with them for whatever reasons. Okay, for whatever reasons. I'm going to try to not expand this into who left who first and who's abandoning who and blah, blah, blah. The point is that if you're a woman, you're fending for yourself and you got a kid to raise, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be the default parent raising the kid. You have no other choice but to work, go to school at the same time. I can not tell you how many times so many of these women are actually working at the same time while going to school, which is Herculean, in my opinion, because you're also raising a kid at the same time. So they have to do these things that they're complaining about. What should they be doing? Really sitting around and waiting for the quote unquote good guys to come to them and finally put a ring on it and, they would sail off into the sunset? I mean, the situation with most Black men, and I'm not faulting them for this, by the way, or they got a situation where, Black men are the least hired, and not because of attitude, not because of this and that. I mean, you know as well as I know, New Possibilities, Black men with degrees and things, you got to work twice as hard, thrice as hard as your white male counterpart to get anywhere, to do anything. If you go for a certification, you got to get 5. You go for a degree, you got to get 3. Well, Black women are kind of like in the same boat. So like a lot of the men who are focused and also who are able to provide are plentiful. So this whole thing about like they're abandoning, no, they're just trying to survive, but they're trying to do better than just survive. So yeah, you do need to go back to school. You need to go ahead and get your GED. That's the way the society is right now. You need your GED, then after that, college. And yeah, you're putting yourself in debt. Of course, you're going to put yourself in debt. What other choice do you have if you want to get a better job? Then again, flipping burgers at McDonald's. And if you're just flipping burgers at McDonald's, guess what? You're going to wind up going on benefit again, because it doesn't pay for anything. This doesn't pay enough. And you can only be in New York, you can only be on Section 8 for a certain number of years. And that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
it's about survival for them. I don't buy into this, they're abandoning anybody.
Yeah, and that whole welfare issue is something else that they bring up. Like they say that welfare is undermining the Black family because people can't receive benefits if they have a live-in partner, like a boyfriend or something like that, or a husband. They can't get certain benefits. So people are projecting this idea that somehow Black women have, in exchange for this welfare and all that kind of stuff, they have decided to raise their children alone and stuff like that. And that promotes this single parent household problem that we have, where it's like over 70% of households are single parent households in the Black community. What's your thought about that? Do you think that like the Great Society programs and welfare and stuff like that contributed to the destruction of the Black family?
I can't see how. I mean, that check that they get is not enough to do anything. And the checks have gotten smaller. And I mean, it's almost like these dudes looked at the movie Claudine and just
Right.
stuck, and seriously, it's like they stuck with that. And what's crazy is that a lot of them were raised on a lot of them were actually raised on welfare. So what did they just forget everything? Like, I don't understand what their deal is. We had our bouts on food stamps here and there, but my mother, yeah, sure, my mother wanted to work. She would rather work because she would have been the first to tell you, man, this food stamp nonsense ain't working, you know. So when she made enough money, she scrimped and saved to where we moved out of Kansas City, Missouri, because the economy there was just tanking bad, you know. So we moved to the South, and things did get better for us after that. Well, that was in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. So this whole thing about like, I mean, it's not like they, seriously, man, it's not like they're sitting there saying, well, I want to kick the black man out. First of all, it was policy that if you had two people in a household, they were adults, they were able-bodied, then you don't get no welfare. So it's like if you know, this whole thing with dudes that were married to these women, they weren't married on paper. So why would you want to have a dude that you just up with, or he's just a boyfriend? Why would you have him in the house if you knew the social worker was going to come around every other week or do surprise checks and all that kind of stuff? I mean, yeah, some of that stuff that we saw in Claudine was true, but it's true. She had to like not, because what if once the social worker sees, oh, there's a man here, what's going on with that? Surely he can provide for you, then you don't need to be on welfare. But the thing is that if you are, what woman in her right mind, if she was with a man and if she knows that the relationship is going to be solid and he's going to be a provider, what woman in her right mind would then say, no, welfare is way better, man. I'm just living large on this check. Come on. And I know another thing they're going to talk about. They're going to say, oh, well, I know this girl down the block. She's on Snap. She's on, you know, she's on Section 8, but yet she's buying weave. Well, okay. And we also know that there's broke brothers out there that'll put rims on a car and the car is falling apart. That's a larger issue. Again, it's not a black woman issue. It's not a black man issue. It's not a black people issue. It's a poor people issue, because poor people are conditioned in this society to bitch when they aren't living that way. And yeah, that's a bad choice. But again, it's about the larger society and the larger culture that we're living in. That has more to do with it than dysfunctional black people narrative nonsense. So,
Right.
you know, no, I don't think that, you know, welfare is not taking black women away from black men and they're forsaking the black man for a welfare check. That's, again, that's a myth. And the myth comes from the myth of welfare. If you sit, I can also, I will make a video basically just doing a shout out to New Possibilities tomorrow. And what I'm going to do is take all the stuff that I talked about. I'm going to give y'all links and all the studies and all the things that I said tonight. And they're actually sitting in my little online notepad that I like where I do all my scripting for my videos. They're already there. So when I make that video, it's all going to be there for you guys to go and you can read this stuff. There's all kinds of myths about welfare, and there's articles that clear this stuff up.
Okay. Yeah. So how are you on time? You have some more time?
I mean, I've got, you know, like I said, I can do as long as 11:30.
Okay.
So we've got like.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a couple of other questions. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and you know, just ask you about this so-called pro-black movement on YouTube, this so-called conscious community. What's your assessment of people like Umar Johnson, Boyce Watkins, Tariq Nasheed, and people like Brother Polite, and you know, Sarnetter TV and stuff like that? What is your thought about those particular figures that are very popular here on YouTube?
All right. Well, I don't follow Polite and Sarnetter to the point to where I know everything that they say and do. I know enough about, I've seen enough videos about them more than anything else. But I can only draw on my own experiences as an activist, and it's strange, I have to say, the pro-blacks of my time, of who we used to call cultural nationalists, right? They went from black businesses and all of this other stuff, and or really they went from trying to do the stuff that Elijah Muhammad was even doing, and they kind of went into this whole other place of just talking about Egypt and the past and all of that. And when they do talk about making a business, it's always like they're the only employer. They're not trying to make some kind of industry or make some sort of collective where where black people can be made into sort of equal partners and share of profit and making real sustainable products. Like they're not doing all that. What they're doing is they're just basically trying to raise cults. And that's how I see a lot of these men on YouTube right now that are so-called pro-black. They don't really have a plan. There is no economic plan, where we can all like say, okay, well, this might work. We can all collectively build some sort of economy within and build it up economically. They don't have a plan. They don't. It always seems to start with just follow what I say and follow what I believe in, and everything will work. Now, I do know enough about Umar Johnson to know that, he's sort of trying to take the ideas of Marcus Garvey. He wanted to make this academy, this school for boys, and it didn't come off the ground. I know that there was a controversy where he's been spending all this money that people gave him, and it wasn't going to that school. And obviously, and I think that the idea was that the school that he wanted, or the property he wanted, I think turned out to be far much more money than he had said that he needed. Immediately when black folks give money for something that they think is going to be an investment in the future, they want to see a return on that investment. I might be a commie, but I'm very familiar with how business works. You have to be if you're going to be anti-capitalist. And but I know also that first of all, I don't put down or attack businesses that black people are doing, by the way, because there's a difference between you being coal industry versus black folks trying to make a school. That's something I would support. That's something that I would put money in. I wouldn't put money in Umar's school, but I would put money in something else that was more egalitarian, that all of our children can benefit from. But anyway, my point here is that my take on a lot of these guys is that I think that they're more cultist leaders, that they want to be, rather than actually being like trying to help people. Now, the one brother that you mentioned, he's less Afrocentric than the rest, but I think he's more, he talks a lot about finances. I haven't looked into him enough to know what exactly is his plan. I think that he's, you just mentioned him. I know I have him, the one with the glasses, he's bald, older gentleman.
Boyce Watkins.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I just lost his name for a second, but he's not unknown to me. But I haven't really looked at a lot of his videos, to be honest with you. I know enough about him to know that he's someone who doesn't capture my interest. I think that maybe his heart is in the right place, but the idea that it's all about just finances is what's going to free black people. I think that he kind of he's about that. I might be wrong. I could be wrong, but that's not the only thing that's going to save us. We can't all be millionaires.
Right. That is the main thing that he pushes: black capitalism and, entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff that's his primary focus. Like, he doesn't focus on electoral politics. In fact, he downplays that. But your assessment is right. That's his primary focus. He talks about black people investing in the stock market and setting up their own businesses. And in a lot of ways, that is beneficial to the black community to have businesses.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a problem with that. But again, like, I agree with you in terms of it not being a solution to our problems. I don't think that it deals with the fundamental structure of society. I think that it's helpful, but it's not a solution.
Our issues,
But
our issues is not just, that we're not millionaires. Our issue is that we don't have, yes, economics is a huge part of what's wrong in our communities. We live in buildings that get run down purposefully so that they can be sold to real estate moguls, and then gentrification happens, and next thing you know, we're outside of our own communities and looking elsewhere to live. But the thing is that if there's no real economic base that works in a more collective way that we can all really support, rather than just a bunch of flim-flam people on the internet. I mean, they're not even talking about the very basics of things like creating chamber of commerce. Like if you were talking about a black bank or a black chamber of commerce that was looking to finance other businesses and to help organize other black businesses, then I would say, now we're talking. This is something that I could support. It's something that I certainly would not attack, because in terms of an economic base, I think that is important in the black community. And you'd be surprised to know that most Marxists do think that way. But the thing is what is it that we should be investing in, and who should we be getting behind is a completely different thing. Investing in the stock market is dicey. It is dicey, and most black people aren't even at that place yet. Most black businesses are not really even in the business of real life-sustaining products for the black community. I mean, I walk down 125th Street from east to west before I head off to the gym on the weekends and at night every day. And all the people who are selling wooden statues and beads and things like this will swear up and down that they're black business people. And I'm like, who can eat beads? Who can eat wooden statues? Why aren't you people doing outreach to black farmers and bringing in, making a grocery store? Like, nobody's talking about things like that. And in my neighborhood, I mean, there are only 2 grocery stores within walking distance of where I live. And when we first moved to Harlem in 2010, there were at least 4 or 5. And of course, none of them were black owned. That's a whole nother thing that we could talk about. But I mean, obviously, I would support a black owned business, and especially if that business is contributing back to the black community, and if that business is about real sustaining product, like feeding black people or providing hardware. Hardware stores are like disappearing in Harlem. You literally have to go ahead and just order online to get, if you want tools. My entire tool collections I had to buy online because the hardware stores in my neighborhood are disappearing. Black people need stuff like that.
Right. So I'm going to ask you a couple of more questions before we close out. Now, do you consider yourself to be a humanist?
Yes and no. I consider myself to be a black person who is a revolutionary. Am I a humanist? Yes, because there's nothing wrong with being. You could be both. You can walk gum and chew. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You could be black and be a humanist at the same time. There's people out there who don't feel that way. I respect their viewpoint on that, but I disagree.
So how would you compare humanism to, like, for instance, black nationalism or Pan-Africanism? Right. Like, what is the tension that you see between those different philosophies? What contradictions do you see between them?
Yeah. Well, humanists want to, especially if they're humanists of color, have a tendency of going out of their way to prove how humanist they are. So they're going to talk about the Palestinian struggle, which is, you should. They're going to talk about the Northern Irish. They're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. And then they'll do everything to avoid talking about what Black people are going through because they're so trying to prove how humanist they are. Black nationalists and Pan-Africanists, the ones of today especially, are even very rigid. They don't want to talk about nobody else's struggle. If you even so much as begin to say, well, Black people should link up to other people who are going through some stuff. First thing they're going to talk about is well, Abdul, who owns the store on the corner, doesn't think that way about you. Well, yeah, okay, Abdul on the corner is an a-hole. Like, I don't want to talk about him. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the people in Palestine and what they're going through. And I feel that a lot of them, a lot of them look at what we're going through and they do identify that. And I think so those tensions create a situation where people can be blind to that. And I think that I'm not down with, nor will I ever be down with something that's going to keep me completely blind to other struggles and other things, especially if it's going to be about strategy. Black people are not going to win their liberation by themselves. And this whole thing, like being anti-Latino, and there's Latinos out there that are racist, but you know what? Not all of them are. And I'm not studying them people. I'm studying the ones who do want to work with Black folks. Mm-hmm. And matter of fact, sorry. And a matter of fact, when people of color and genders and sexual orientations, when they look at what Black people did and they do the same thing, I think that's a good thing. But they, of course, at the same time, need to be called out when they don't owe up to what Black people did for them when we paved the way for their civil rights. And they need to be there for us when we go through shit. I'm stuff. Sorry. So I've almost made it without cursing. But anyway.
There's no problem. I mean, I'm not censoring anybody, but yeah, I've encountered that like same issue. Like when I talk about like coalition building, identifying with the problems of others, for instance, immigrants or other groups that face discrimination. I get a lot of hostile reaction. A lot of people are really hostile to the idea of linking up with others or partnering with others or coalitions and stuff like that. Because I really think that a lot of the people that take that type of anti stance, like anti anything that's not Black stance, I think that a lot of them like have no real experience organizing anything. Like a lot of these people some of the people that I mentioned, like I'm not aware of them organizing any kind of demonstration or any kind of lobbying effort to change any kind of laws. I'm not aware of them doing anything like that. So it's easy for those people to not talk about coalitions or express like all these anti-immigrant views or anti-Latino views, anti-Muslim views and stuff like that, because they don't have any like practical experience organizing. And anybody that's serious about affecting any kind of real change, they have to realize the importance of coalitions, because you can't get laws passed without like forming coalitions, without getting together with groups of people and collecting your resources to make change in society. And I think that that's one thing that a lot of these people just don't understand. I mean, they don't even understand that back in the day, groups like the Black Panther Party formed coalitions, and other Black nationalists and socialist groups form coalitions all the time. I mean, somebody like a Kwame Ture and the All African People's Revolutionary Party, they have all kinds of coalitions with other progressive and revolutionary groups. And even like the civil rights movement, they've had, they were built on coalitions and stuff like that. And I just think that that's something a lot of people just simply don't understand.
They don't understand it. There's some people out there that they just innocently, they don't understand it. And a lot of them, I think, who aren't so innocent in their position, they're just using that as an excuse not to do anything. But then when you say, okay, well, you all about, and believe me, I'm all about Black love and black people getting together. But let's be honest, you don't even do that either. So so these same people that sit here and they try to attack people like yourself or me or whatever, and it's like, well, how can you be talking about these other groups and building coalitions when they didn't do this and they haven't done that, and they feel this way? And it's like, okay, well, great. So if you feel that way, what are you doing right now in the black community with other black people? Exactly. And I can guarantee you that answer won't be a damn thing. You're going to hear nothing but crickets answer instead of
right. And then a lot of people say, like, these other groups, like, that's one point that they constantly make. They say, well, none of these other people do anything for black people. And that's just simply not true. I mean, there are countless examples of people of other groups that have been a part of the civil rights struggle, for instance, been a part of the abolitionist movement, been a part of the radical left movement during the 60s and 70s. And even today, they help with groups like Black Lives Matter and other activist groups. I think that people are, like, they're just not seeing the reality. And I was thinking about, like, doing a video just demonstrating this with, like, actual photographs so that people could understand that a lot of times some of these people that are real popular here on YouTube, they are prone to exaggeration, and a lot of things that they say are non-factual and more based on rhetoric than anything else.
Yeah, very much based on rhetoric. I had no problems in some of my videos showing Black Lives Matter. As a matter of fact, I did it on purpose, showing Black Lives Matter demos that a lot of white people were doing. Some of the more radical actions, like literally taking over freeways, for instance, those were mostly white people that were doing that. And that comes from a real politics, by the way.
Exactly.
A lot of white anarchists were challenging white liberals and saying, if you're saying that you're against racism, and you're saying you're against what's happening to black people, where their bodies are on the line, in the face of police brutality, us as white people with our privilege, we should put our bodies on the line and take over this freeway and let them know that a black man was killed this week. And so these people exist. And yeah, I mean, some of them will go to jail. Some of them don't have the money to get out of jail the next day. Some of them do, some of them don't. And you got to respect that. I respect that. Those who don't want to, my only feeling about that is ante up. If you don't want people like me talking about people like that, then you need to talk about other black people that you're working with to do stuff with. Exactly. And I guarantee you, none of them people are doing anything. If you've actually been involved in grassroots politics like I have, or others, you've seen the white people, you've seen the Latinos, you've seen the people, Arab Americans, you've seen them who come into the black community, they sit in, they're part of the meetings, they go to demos, some of them get arrested. That's all there is to it. Does that mean that I think that all white people are great and wonderful? No, obviously not. If we wouldn't be out there protesting if that were the case.
Exactly.
But I mean, so I mean, my thing is I don't put a lot of energy into those people. Like I know some of the people that you're talking about and the things that they say. I think that it's okay. You're definitely pro-black and radical, and you could definitely be that and definitely at the same time say that you're a humanist. And to talk about the white folks out there who are willing to put their bodies on the line and work with you, that needs to be recognized. And yeah,
so I'll conclude with this last question. And I wanted to know, and a couple of these questions were brought to me by one of my subscribers, and her name is Why Not Now. In particular, she asked about the whole question dealing with feminists and black women. And this is one question. This last question is a question that she mentioned, and that's this: what should people do in the Trump era to affect progressive change in society right now? Like, what kind of strategies should people be trying to implement, given the fact that we have this right-wing, reactionary government in place? And even before Trump was in office, we had, Obama, which, I think that he's far more progressive, to use that word, but still there were problems under Democrats and Republicans. But what do you think that people should be doing to affect change now?
Well, we've been not so far back in terms of actual social justice movements that I almost feel like we have to go back to the basics of what happened in the late 50s, where we know we really do sit again. There is going to have to be coalition building at this point. The one thing that I noticed that the system fears is a hydra-headed movement, a movement that may share the same body, but it has different heads and comes at you at different angles. And I think that, to me, I think that there definitely needs to be a more organized and more radical effort for us to put forth out there. Like, I don't believe it should be just one organization that just sucks up everybody else's cause, because that's not, that doesn't work. But it definitely has to be a movement that respects everybody's causes. And like Voltron, we need to come together and form this one thing that can go out and take this movement. Take this movement down. So I think that, Black Lives Matter probably should start coming out to actions that Antifa comes out and gets involved with. Antifa is proven to be, people are looking at them and saying how violent they are, but they're not violent. They're actually reacting to how bad the right wing has gotten now. And you need to meet them head on in a more radical, in your face way. I was in Washington on the day that Trump was inaugurated, but that was because there was stuff that a lot of the anti-Trump demonstrations were happening there. And it would have been so good if Black Lives Matter was out there like that. Some were members, or some people wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts anyway, were there. But it would have been so good if a lot of us are out there, because everything that you made that awesome video earlier today about Mississippi. This is what I'm saying, what you just said. This level of extreme oppression right now should not just be Black people dealing with this. And even now, because right now it's like there's minimal activity in Mississippi. I know a brother by the name of, I don't know him personally, but I know of his work, named Kali Okuno. He's in Mississippi. I'm going to reach out to him so I can interview him to find out more about what's going on out there. But but even like little Smith little parts of little resistances here and there, we got to start linking up and linking up, and actually forming a larger body of resistance. That's what happened in the 60s. And that's the reason why the government went with COINTELPRO, because they were scared to death. Their own white kids were rebelling against them. Black people were becoming militant and actually quoting Marx and talking about taking Black nationalism to a more left place, but without destroying it, Blackness. These things were scary. And as you said, Black Panthers were forming coalitions with Chicanos, and then you had the Brown Berets and the Young Lords. That was a scary time for it wasn't a scary time for us. It was a scary time for the oppressor. And he reacted, and it reacted in the way that it did. It showed you who was a real threat at the time. We got to come back with that again, but better and bigger and stronger than last time, because we let a lot of little things disunify us, and we weren't really prepared for what COINTELPRO was aimed at. Your guest on your last hangout talked about that. Nobody saw that coming, really, and I can understand why. But we should have learned our lessons from history, and we should be able to move forward better now than ever before. So that's what it's going to take.
I hear you. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on New Possibilities. I truly appreciate it. I think that we had a great discussion.
I hope I get invited again. This was really good. Yeah.
Definitely. And I'll be glad to come on one of your Google Hangouts.
Yes, definitely. I want to have you on, and then I want to have you on again because I want to reach out to Kali Okuno I want to have Lorenzo Cambora Irvin, somebody who I haven't spoken to in years, but I want to have him on, and yeah, that would be good. So yeah, you're definitely going to be invited more than a couple of times, but yeah. All right, yeah, this was good. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll say peace and blessings to all the people in the chat room and people who are watching.
And thank you,
Shout
trolls.
out again. Oh, go ahead. Please go ahead.
No, I said I just want to thank my trolls. I'm not gonna answer to you all.
Loyal trolls. They're real loyal.
Yeah, I do. I have some loyal trolls, but they're only loyal. They follow me everywhere because they got blocked. But you don't know why you got blocked. You didn't get blocked because you had something to say and you stumped me. You had nothing to say, and so therefore that's why you got blocked. But yeah, huge shout out to Monkey Handlebars. He hung in there the longest. He's still here, I see. And then my other people. But I want to give a shout out to my fans. Pure Butterfly Spirit came, and I want to give a shout out to her, and you know, and that's it. But yeah, this was good.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just close out with a couple of shout outs. Shout out to B Money. Shout out
to B Money too. Yeah, I like him.
Shout out to Rare Jim, and shout out to everybody in the chat room. We truly appreciate you all tuning in. And with that, I'll just say peace and blessings to each and every one of you. And good night.
All right. Peace.